Hello, Nyy'zai of planet Earth. My name is Zai Nyy'zai. Glad to see you back for the next installment of the Nyy'zai Temple Foundational series. So let's talk about Nyy'zai human design. Well, the last time we talked about how useful it is to think of yourself as a character in an RPG with character sheet and all that good stuff. Well, there's a lot of visualization techniques, a lot of metaphors that you can use that will help you understand yourself better, understand your story better. There's a lot of ways you can do that. So you have the character in the RPG for one, you have superheroes for another, you have magical creatures, and one that's going to be particularly useful, especially when talking about like really tech-heavy stuff, like we're going to be talking about in human design, is to understand yourself as like a ship, like a bio ship. And this is something that's going to be very useful in the human design, tech-heavy way of understanding yourself. But visualization techniques in general are very, very useful. So definitely feel free to use a lot of different ones. The ones that I talked about and all kinds of other ones, just interchangeably. Anything is good when understanding, grasping the magic behind your design. So let's begin by talking about momentum and modulation. Momentum and modulation you can be understood with a very simple principle. Momentum is the gaining of energy. Modulation is the curbing of energy. And so all mojos have 4 conscious powers. They also have 4 unconscious powers too, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's disregard that for now. We'll talk about that in a later episode. For now, let's focus on the conscious stuff. The 4 conscious powers. The top 2 of those powers are momentum powers, meaning when these powers are used, when they're done, there will be a gaining of energy. When the 2 bottom powers, the bottom powers are modulation powers, meaning these powers are curbing the native energy flow of the momentum powers. And so your modulation powers are necessary to refine the materials that are coming from your momentum powers. And so they're used to balance yourself out in such a way that makes you a more masterful creature. Although it needs to be understood that the curbing of energy also comes with an expenditure of energy. So there is a gaining of energy as well as an expenditure of energy that comes from the curbing of your powers. Momentum and modulation is the primary binary flow in the psyche. And this binary flow is going to be expressed as adaptivity and directivity. Adaptive powers, these are freeform, unstructured, reactive powers. These are all on the right. They are right psyche powers. The directive powers, which are flags forward, closure-oriented, structured, based in time, these powers are left psyche powers. An adaptive mojo is a mojo who gets momentum from their adaptive powers and they modulate with directive powers. A directive mojo gets momentum from their directive powers and they modulate with their adaptive powers. As a Nyy'zai, you are an adaptive mojo because you are getting momentum from your Ni and Zai, which are adaptive powers. So to recap, it is your Ni and your Zai that are your momentum powers as well as your adaptive powers, and it is your directive powers of Ji and Vi that are your modulation powers. Next, there are objective and subjective mojos. Being an objective mojo means that your powers are weighted on the front side powers, outward orientation. Being subjective means that your powers are weighted on the backside powers, inward orientation. As a Nyy'zai, you are objective, and this is because your source power of Ni is an objective power, and so you are weighted on the front side powers. You're also weighted on the right front because of the fact that you are adaptive. All mojos have perceptions, which is the intaking of information, as well as discernments, which is the making of decisions based on certain criteria. Your perceptions are located in the perception corridor, and your discernments are located in the discernment corridor. Now, as a Nyy'zai, like we said in the last episode, your source power is Nyi. This means you lead with Nyi, which is a perception power. This makes you a lead perceiver. The perception and discernment corridors each split into 2 channels. So the perception corridor splits into the interpretive channel, which are pattern-based perceptions, and the literal channels, which is basically detail-based perceptions. As a Nyy'zai, you are an interpretive mojo, and this is because your source power of Nyi, your primary perception, is a pattern-based perception. It's an interpretive perception, making you an interpretive mojo. So it is because of the fact that your Nyi, your pattern-based interpretive perception, is above your bipolar, which is your detail-based perception. Now let's talk about discernment. With discernment, the discernment corridor splits into logic-based discernment and values-based discernment. Logic-based discernment is decisions that are being made based on logical or tactical criteria, and values-based discernment is decision-making based on emotive or humanistic criteria. As a Nyy'zai, you are a logic-based mojo, and this is because Zai, your primary discernment, is a logic-based discernment. Your Zai, your logic-based discernment, is ranked above your Ji, which is your values-based discernment, making you a logic-based mojo. So altogether, this gives you, as a Nyy'zai, energy fields that are adaptive, objective, perception lead, interpretive, and logic-based. Now, there's another kind of math that needs to be completely addressed on both sides of the psyche in order to have basic functionality for any mojo. These considerations are called the 4 considerations. They are subjectivity, objectivity, perception, and discernment. All of these need to be addressed on both sides at the same time. Your Nyi is both objective and perception, so it addresses those 2 considerations. And your Zai addresses subjectivity and discernment, so it addresses the remaining 2 considerations. So together, your Nyi and Zai on the right side of your psyche addresses all 4 necessary considerations. Did you notice something interesting there? You actually needed both of your powers together to complete the 4 consideration, because all powers can only complete 2 of the consideration. So they need to be kind of fused together in order to address all 4 consideration. So this references something called the compound relationship. Your Nyi and your Zai have kind of an intrinsically fused relationship. That is something that we call the compound relationship. You actually have 2 compound relationships. All mojos have 2 compound relationships. You're going to have one on the right and one on the left. You're going to have an adaptive compound and a directive compound. So as a Nyy'zai, your major compound, meaning your primary compound, your momentum compound, is your Nyi and your Zai. And your minor compound, meaning your modulation compound, is your Ji and your Vi. Do you remember in the last episode when we talked about how the 4 quadrants of the psyche could be thought as those different characters in that multi-class sort of thing? You know, where you have like the fighter, and you have the wizard, and you got the rogue or thief up here, and you have the priest up here. You do remember? Good, that makes things a lot easier. Well, those 4 characters could also be thought of as the 4 priorities. Now, this is another kind of mathematic relationship that needs to be met correctly for all mojos in order for them to have advanced functionality. The gatherer quadrant is the stimulus register. The tower quadrant is the compass bearings. The fighter or pilot quadrant is the dynamics mover. And the wizard/hunter quadrant is the worldview map. All mojos will address all 4 priorities. They have no choice but to, but they'll be doing so in different rankings. For you as a Nyy'zai, you are addressing first the priority of stimulus register with your Nyi, then you are addressing the priority of compass bearings with your Zai, then third you are addressing the priority of dynamics mover with your Ji, and then last, 4th ranked polar, you are addressing the priority of worldview map with your Vi. So to put this in perspective, let's look at this in that ship metaphor again. The stimulus register priority is basically like a real-time perception priority. You are taking in stimulus as it's emerging in real time. So this is actually how you kind of take in the world in front of you as it's going on. You could basically think of this as kind of like the front window of the ship that you're in, where you can actually observe the environment, watch things come at you as they do. Then you have next the compass bearings, for you being addressed by Nyy'zai. The compass bearings powers, this priority is basically designed to bring your psyche to equilibrium in different ways. For you as a Nyy'zai mojo, then it's doing so in a cool, logic-based sort of way. But yeah, the compass bearings, they bring you to equilibrium. So you can think of this as being the suspension system of your ship. Then next you have the dynamics mover that you're addressing with your G. This priority is, well, as the name would suggest, you're moving dynamics, you're steering dynamics. And so you can think of this as kind of the steering system of your ship that you use to actually steer your entire ship. Then you have the worldview map, which you are addressing with your Vi. The worldview map, this is a subjective perception. It's a worldview. So you can kind of think of this as like the internal map system that a ship would have. So something like a GPS system, or maybe like a radar or something. I don't know. One of those kind of like computer systems that like ship would have, where you could actually see like mapped out like the entire, the globe, and you could map out points and like plan out your trajectories and stuff like that. That would be what the worldview map represents for the psyche. Okay, now that you understand your tech specs, let's talk about the powers that we went over in the last episode with these tech specs in mind. Okay, so your top ranked power is Nyi, which can be thought of in technical terms as adaptive, objective, interpretive perception. Nyi addresses the considerations of perception and objectivity for the psyche, and addresses the priority of stimulus register. Nyi is also going to be major momentum for you as a Nyy'zai, so it will give you the most energy. Nyy'zai is your second ranked or tandem power. Nyy'zai in technical terms could be thought of as adaptive, subjective, logic-based discernment. Nyy'zai addresses the considerations of subjectivity and discernment, and addresses the priority of compass bearings for the psyche. Nyy'zai is minor momentum for you as a Nyy'zai, so it'll also give you energy. G is your third ranked or offside power. G in technical terms could be thought of as directive, objective, values-based discernment. G addresses the considerations of discernment and objectivity, as well as the priority of dynamics mover for the psyche. It will cost some energy to use. Vi is the fourth ranked or polar power for the Nyy'zai. In technical terms, Vi could be thought of as directive, subjective, literal perception. Vi addresses the considerations of perception and subjectivity, and the priority of worldview map for the psyche. Vi is major modulation for you as a Nyy'zai, and so it's going to be the most costly of energy in order to use. Bam! That's it. Okay, so now you know a little more about yourself. You've already started understanding yourself as being the cool superhero that you are. Now you're beginning to see yourself as well as this bioship of the most cutting-edge technology natural law has to offer. So continue watching more episodes. We're going to continue blowing your mind with finding out how even more awesome you are as a magical, cool Nyy'zai, which you are. So keep doing that. Until then, know yourself, grow yourself, save the world.